More than 20 years passed before this case finally began to unravel. And it didn't start with police work, DNA, or a confession. It started by accident. Two women met while watching their children play. A casual conversation slowly drifted back to a crime that haunted their town since 1989. When one of them said, "I think I know who did it," the other froze. She had been thinking of the exact same man.
From the surface to the abyss, welcome to the depths of crime.
Friday, November 24th, 1989. The day after Thanksgiving. 18-year-old Mandy left her home around 2 p.m. She planned to go for a run along her usual route near the forest. She took her dog with her, a young German shepherd. Normally, her mother followed her on a bicycle. That day, Mandy went alone. It would be the last time anyone saw her alive. The family lived in Acme, a quiet town of just 300 people in Washington state. They had moved there from Alaska after a devastating tragedy. The murder of Mandy's older brother, a crime that was never solved. They were searching for a fresh start, a place where doors were left unlocked, where teenagers ran alone through the woods. Crime was rare. That's why Mandy's disappearance struck the town like a lightning bolt, sudden, violent, and terrifying. Mandy was not the kind of girl who vanished without a word. Sports defined her life. She played basketball, led cheer squads, swam, ran, and practiced music for hours. She played the saxophone and clarinet, studied hard, and had just started her first semester at university. She dreamed big, pushed herself constantly, and never walked away from people she loved. Police quickly ruled out a voluntary disappearance. When Mandy left home, she wore a light-colored sweatshirt, turquoise sweatpants, and blue running shoes with a purple stripe. She carried a Walkman, music playing through her headphones as she ran. Her mother showed police the exact route Mandy always followed. Officers searched the area, knocked on nearby doors, and questioned residents. One man said he saw Mandy running back toward home. She never arrived. That same witness mentioned something else. A dark-colored van was driving slowly behind her. Investigators immediately suspected an abduction. They believed the attacker pulled up beside her, threatened her with a weapon, and forced her into the vehicle. The dog must have resisted. That would explain why he returned alone, frightened, shaken, and without his owner. On the second day of searching, police found a disturbing clue deep in the woods. Lying among leaves and dirt were torn turquoise sweatpants. They matched the color Mandy had been wearing. The fabric was damaged and stained. Lab tests revealed male DNA semen. Investigators feared the worst. To them, it suggested sexual assault. Hope of finding Mandy alive began to fade. When Mandy's mother was shown the pants, she refused to accept they belonged to her daughter. They were too torn, too damaged. Mandy would never leave the house wearing something like that. But detectives believed the damage happened during an attack. Despite the doubts, the pants were logged as evidence. Volunteers joined police, searching forests and riverbanks, desperate to bring Mandy home. On November 27th, search teams focused on the river near Mandy's running route. One officer noticed a broken tree branch hanging low over the water, as if something had caught on it. Then he saw blue fabric beneath the surface. At first, it didn't register. A moment later, the truth hit. It was a running shoe, still on a human foot. Mandy's body was pulled from the river. She was wearing only socks and shoes. Everything else was gone. At the morgue, her mother identified her daughter. The autopsy revealed Mandy had drowned. But moments before death, she had been struck hard on the back of the head, likely losing consciousness. That blow made it easy for the killer to throw her into the water. The medical examiner confirmed Mandy had been sexually assaulted. Semen was recovered, matching the DNA found on the sweatpants in the forest. Her arms and legs were covered in deep scratches, consistent with blackberry thorns. Investigators believe Mandy tried to escape. Naked, terrified, she ran through sharp brush. Her attacker caught up to her, struck her, and ended her life. Several items were never found: Mandy's sweatshirt, underwear, and Walkman. Police believed the killer took them as trophies or destroyed them. Witnesses reported seeing a suspicious man near the crime scene. A composite sketch was released: dark hair, facial hair, unfamiliar face. Attention turned to a local drifter named David. He was questioned and gave DNA. It did not match. One by one, nearly 30 local men were tested and cleared. With no suspects left, the case went cold. Years passed, then decades. Mandy's mother lived with unbearable loss. First her son, then her daughter. Both murdered, both killers unknown. Life in Acme slowly returned to normal, but fear never fully disappeared. Someone out there had done this, and they were still free, living an ordinary life among ordinary people. In 2009, a new team of detectives reopened the case. Many of them had grown up in the same area. Some had known Mandy from school hallways. They approached the file with fresh eyes, driven not just by duty, but by memory. While reviewing old notes, one name resurfaced: John Wisniewski, a former resident known for dealing drugs years earlier. Several people remembered Wisniewski claiming he knew who killed Mandy, yet he never named the person. Police had questioned him before, but he always denied knowing anything. This time, detectives were determined. Tracking him down took months. He had left the United States. Eventually, they found him living in Cambodia. In 2010, officers traveled across the world to confront him. Despite the long journey, the interview led nowhere. Wisniewski repeated the same story. He knew nothing. Detectives didn't believe him. Their instincts told them he was hiding something, possibly out of fear. But suspicion alone wasn't enough. Once again, the trail went cold. Mandy's case slipped back into silence, buried under time and unanswered questions. 3 more years passed. Hope faded. Then, unexpectedly, 2 women stepped forward. They had never met before. They had never spoken to police. For nearly 24 years, they carried the same suspicion and the same fear. In a small town, accusing the wrong man could destroy lives, especially if that man came from a respected, well-known family. The women met by chance at a water park, watching their children play. Small talk turned into memories. Memories turned into silence. Finally, one of them spoke the words she had buried for decades.
I think I know who killed Mandy.
The other woman went pale. She had carried the same name in her mind since 1989. They realized they had both been afraid of the same man. The first woman, Heather, was 15 in 1989. Months before Mandy's murder, she rode home from a game with friends. One older boy began flirting. When she rejected him, his tone changed. He told her she had beautiful eyes, then pressed a pen against her neck like a knife. She froze. He stopped, but the threat never left her memory. The second woman, Mary Lee, had an even darker experience. In 1991, she was married with a 1-year-old child. One evening, a familiar man knocked on her door, claiming he needed to call his wife. Once inside, he confessed an obsession with her, describing fantasies she begged him to stop. He eventually left, but fear stayed with her for decades. Neither woman had ever told anyone, not their parents, not their husbands. Fear and shame kept them silent. Now, for the first time, they spoke to police. When detectives heard the name they shared, they were stunned. Timothy B., known as Tim, had never been considered a suspect. He came from a respected local family. No DNA had ever been taken. Timothy Bass had lived in Acme in 1989 before moving away in the early 90s. In 2013, detectives brought him in for questioning. He denied knowing Mandy. Then, under pressure, he changed his story. He admitted he recognized her. The shift raised alarms. In a town this small, everyone remembered Mandy. Pretending otherwise felt deliberate and dangerous. Investigators dug deeper into Timothy B.'s life. His family home was less than 2 miles from Mandy's running route. Yet when asked for a DNA sample, Tim refused. He claimed he didn't trust police, insisting his DNA could be planted to frame an innocent man. Detectives placed him under surveillance, waiting for a mistake, a discarded cup, a cigarette, anything. Tim was careful, too careful. He wore gloves at work, avoided leaving trash, and never slipped. Months passed with nothing. Then, in 2017, police visited the bakery where he worked as a delivery driver. His manager sensed what they were investigating. Without being asked, she decided to help. She had always found Tim aggressive, cold, and openly hostile toward women. One day, after 3 months of watching, she found what she'd been waiting for: a discarded soda can and a plastic cup. Wearing gloves, she secured them and contacted police. The items were sent to the lab. When results came back, there was no doubt. The saliva on the cup matched the semen collected in 1989. After 28 years, the killer had a name. On December 12, 2017, Timothy B. was arrested in the bakery parking lot. He was charged with kidnapping, rape, and first-degree murder. During his first interrogation, he denied everything. When police told him his DNA matched the evidence, he panicked. He demanded to know how they got it. Then his story changed again. Tim now claimed he and Mandy had been secret lovers. He said they met while he rode bicycles with his father, that the relationship turned sexual, and that they had been intimate shortly before her death. There were no letters, no calls, no witnesses, no locations he could name. Detectives believed the story was invented on the spot, a desperate attempt to explain DNA. The trial began in 2019. Tim's story unraveled quickly. Family and friends testified that Mandy had never mentioned any secret relationship. Her boyfriend believed she was faithful. Prosecutors argued that Tim and Mandy may have known each other by sight, nothing more. They believed rejection fueled obsession. An obsession turned violent when Tim decided he was entitled to her. Tim's ex-wife took the stand. She described nearly 3 decades of control, humiliation, and emotional abuse. He monitored her movements, insulted her publicly, and treated her like property. When she finally left, he threatened to use family connections to take her children away. Only his arrest in 2017, she said, truly set her free. She also confirmed she knew Mandy. They attended the same school. She knew where Mandy lived. Prosecutors argued that Tim likely had the same knowledge and only pretended otherwise. His former wife testified that after police began closing in, Tim discussed blaming his deceased father for the murder. Even his own family rejected that idea. Tim's younger brother delivered one of the most damaging testimonies. He said Tim had always been isolated, angry, and resentful toward women. As a teenager, Tim once threatened suicide after a breakup, firing a gun into the air to manipulate his girlfriend. Years later, Tim asked his brother to lie, to claim Mandy had been promiscuous, and to provide a false alibi. The defense argued the sex was consensual and could have occurred days earlier, but the medical examiner who performed the original autopsy disagreed. The amount of semen and water exposure showed intercourse occurred shortly before death. Mandy's injuries, scratches, and missing clothing pointed to assault, not romance. Logic, science, and evidence told one story. The jury found Timothy B. guilty on all counts. He was sentenced to 26 years and 8 months in prison, nearly the same amount of time it took to catch him. To this day, he claims he is innocent. But after 28 years, Mandy finally had justice, and a town that lived in fear could finally breathe again. Mandy's story reminds us that time doesn't erase the truth. Sometimes, justice waits quietly for decades until someone finally speaks. If this case stayed with you, leave a comment and share your thoughts. Your voice matters more than you think. If you want more real stories like this, don't forget to like the video and subscribe. And when you're ready, choose another case from the channel. There are many stories still waiting to be told. Thank you for listening. Take care.